I'm digging myself out of a hole, and I feel like you are one of the people that just trying to push me back in there. Let me tell you, what I'm doing right now is I'm focusing on myself.
You should.
I have kept a very small circle of people around me, and I have...
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Orange County, Season 18, Episode 7. And before we get into it, let me just say, it really warms my heart that you guys enjoy the way I whack Gina, Emily, Tamra, and Alexis each episode, and I will continue to do it because they try it every single week.
I'm just scoot on over and let you whack him. Get him again. Get him for me.
When I tell y'all, I'm really excited for this reunion because I really hope that Andy reads all the viewer questions, reading them for filth, especially Tamra and Alexis and Emily. Because Emily has been on one trying to be Tamra Jr. And girl, like I told you in the last double recap that I did, you're not Tamra. This whole mean girl shtick is not you. So just stop. You look like an insecure bully and your jealousy towards Jen continues to jump out and you need to get some help for that. And bravo, I know that you guys watch me. Hey, how are you? How you doing? Please let this be Alexis Bellino's last season. We don't need her. She's bringing nothing. And Alexis, how embarrassing for you that every time you have a scene, you're talking about Shannon. And I know it pains y'all to admit it, but Shannon Storms Bedore is the girl. She's the star of this show. It is what it is. And y'all really can't handle it. Personally, my ego is a bit too big to be focusing on the next person. And if I were on this show, I would not spend every waking minute talking about somebody that I claim that I don't like. And it's clear that while y'all were filming, you really thought that we'd be on your side. But y'all, I have a lot to say. And without further ado, let's just get right on into it because you guys already know that we don't have a minute to spare. So we open up this episode with both groups on their girls' trips, and it's the next morning. So we see the La Quinta group waking up, and then we see the crew over at Big Bear waking up, and we see Tamra talking to Alexis and Jen. They're all talking about how much they love Katie, how she's so much fun. And then Tamra goes on to say, how can we get Heather to like her? And I said, when it comes to Heather, Heather and I are very similar because the minute you cross me, especially if we don't know each other well, and you come to me with some BS, I'm going to hold that grudge. And it's not going to be easy for us to get to know each other and go forward. And that's just me. I'm not saying that that's a great way to be, but I feel like I don't bother people. And if you come at me with some BS unprovoked, I have nothing for you. And it's no shade, it's no hate, but you stay over there and I'm gonna stay right there. So I think that that's also Heather's personality type too. So I don't see her opening her arms back up to Katie because Katie tried it. Katie, you should have left this whole paparazzi mess alone. You weren't even on the show last season, so you look even more stupid to bring up a storyline that had nothing to do with you. That was an amateur mistake. And like I told you before, the girl set you up for failure. And my question remains, even if Heather and Terry do call the paparazzi on themselves, why does anybody care? So now we see them in the kitchen cooking breakfast. And at one point, Jen goes on to ask Alexis if Alexis prefers coffee in the morning or Red Bull. And I don't know if Alexis didn't hear the question. I don't know if she was still hungover from the night before. But she starts talking about how she thinks that she's premenopausal because she hasn't gotten her period in a while and she doesn't know what to do. And they were all staring at her like, girl, we just wanted to know, do you like coffee or Red Bull? Like, answer the question, yes or no. I don't know how we got from there to your period and you being premenopausal, like what's going on? And like I said in the last recap, I would not have gone on a girls' trip with Tamra and Alexis. No, thank you. Alexis, this entire trip has been annoying. It's either been talk about John or she's talking about Shannon, just very weirdo behavior. So now we're back in La Quinta and the women are outside eating breakfast. So Heather points out that she's having a good time. This trip has been fun, but the golf event hosted by Katie, that wasn't fun. And Gina's dinner wasn't fun either. So now Shannon interjects and she says, you guys, I just want to say, I had no intentions of ever bringing our friend group into my drama with John Jansen suing me. Now, y'all already know that I don't like Emily. So every time she opens her mouth, I'm always rolling my eyes because she's always saying something stupid. So when she opened her mouth to say this, I was like, girl, shut up. So she jumps in and says, Shannon, I have to be honest, when this mess came up, it sort of seemed like you were being dishonest about the relationship. And I said, now, somebody please let me know, how did it look like Shannon wasn't being honest? I believed every word that Shannon was paying his way. I don't feel like this recent news about Shannon owing him money was a lie or made Shannon look like she was dishonest. No, I looked at it as a desperate man who wants to milk his rich ex-girlfriend for more money because he's a loser with no job. That's how I saw it. You could look at John and see that he's a leech. So Shannon says, oh, I know, and I hate that, but I have my stack of receipts to show that I paid for the majority of stuff in our relationship. And I said, once again, Shannon, please know that the viewers, we all believe you, we're on your side, and I never doubted for a minute that you were telling the truth about paying for John. Now, let me tell you this, though. Shannon, don't you ever pay a man's way again, especially not at your big age. Miss Mamas, you know better. And y'all know I don't believe in women paying for men or giving men money. Absolutely not. And John is pathetic to be suing you for money in the first place. And Miss Alexis, girl, while you're sitting up there talking about Shannon every chance you get, you need to be watching your purse to make sure that John's hand isn't in it. Because trust and believe, you're next. And when he fleeces you, I don't want to hear any crying and talking about, oh, I can't believe this. No, Miss Mamas, you were warned. And may I just say one more thing? I promise you, I'm going to get right back to the recap. Say no to desperation. Desperation will lead you down a dark path each and every time. It's not worth it. And I really hope that Shannon has learned a valuable lesson to never do this again. And a rich man that's stingy is damn near the same thing as a broke man. So the goal is to get somebody who has a generous spirit. Generosity is the goal, okay? And as we can see with Shannon and John, he was not generous at all. He was very stingy. He had alligator arms waiting on Shannon to pay. Just a hot mess. So now Gina jumps in and says, we had no idea that that was John's way of trying to reimburse you. We didn't know any of that. First of all, Gina, you and Shannon weren't even cool for a good season and a half, so you wouldn't know the ins and outs of their relationship and what was going on. So now Shannon gives an example of the times where she was bawling out for John and his family. She says that a few years ago, they were celebrating his daughter's birthday, and she booked an LA vacation for all of them, and she booked 4 rooms at the London. And a quick side note, the London West Hollywood is that, girl. When I used to live in LA, I lived on the next street over, so the London was like right there. Stunning. So when she said that the trip was 10 grand, I was thinking, I'm surprised it wasn't more than that. And somebody let me know, what was John buying for Shannon's daughters when it was their birthdays? I'll wait. He probably wasn't buying them anything. Probably didn't even buy them a cake. His daughter should have gotten a cake from Costco and a few balloons and call it a day. I'm just really upset for my girl because John really played in her face. He really played in her wallet. Overall, Shannon, do not ever do this again. Ever. And Shannon, I'm so surprised because you grew up rich with a rich father, and despite your marriage to David being a hot-ass mess, you did say that David took care of everything. He paid all the bills. You didn't see a bill in the 20 years that you were married. So for you to go from that to now paying a man's way, I'm like, girl, what happened? So Shannon's getting emotional and she says that she's paying her attorney to now deal with this. And now Emily says, well, why don't you just cut out the attorney and just cut John a check for like 30 grand? So Shannon says, look, I would rather pay my attorney because I'll tell you right now, I'm not giving that man a damn dime of my money. She goes on to say that it's a slap in the face, and I agree with her. I wouldn't give John anything. He wouldn't even get $5 out of me, because how dare you? So at this point, Shannon is sobbing, and when I tell you I felt so bad for her, you can tell that Shannon is going through it. And let me say this, one of y'all pointed out that while you like Shannon, the entire time that she's been on this show, she's been miserable and she's had some sort of calamity befall her. And that is true. I had to go back and say, oh my gosh, you're right. When we first met Shannon in season 9, she was going through it with David. Then there was the whole thing of her and David trying to work it out after he admitted that he did cheat on her and had that long affair. So then there was that. Then there was the whole point of they get divorced. Then she was dealing with her weight. It's just been a lot with Shannon. And I want Shannon to finally reach the point where we get a great season out of her with no drama, no heartache, no heartbreak, no nothing. I just want Shannon to be free, because that is very true that ever since Shannon has been on our screens, we've yet to see her in a good place. It's always been something. But Shannon is still sobbing, and she goes on to add that they have no idea how overwhelmed she is, and she's grateful for their support. And while I'm happy that they did rally around her, Emily gave her a big hug. That was actually nice. I was shocked she did that. But like I just mentioned, I'm going to need Shannon to have at least 2 seasons of her being good, where there is no drama, no stress, no strife, no financial issues, no lawsuits, no nothing. I need her to have a few years when she's just on top and there's nothing bringing her down. It's just too much. So now we flip back over to the group at Big Bear, and they're just sitting down talking about last night, how much fun they had. So now Katie brings up Jen's ex-husband, Will, and she says, by the way, Jen, did everything get resolved between you and Will yesterday? So now we see a clip where Jen was freaking out about how, since she's away in Big Bear, Will has to pick up the kids, and Will is always late. So Jen says he took the kids out to dinner, everything gets worked out, but I do wish that me, him, and his girlfriend Laura could sit down and just talk. So we find out that Will and Laura have been dating for 3 years, but the gag is Laura used to be Jen's best friend and interior designer. So when Jen found out that her best friend was seeing her soon-to-be ex-husband, she wasn't happy about it. So from what Jen was sharing with us, it seems like things aren't good between her, Will, and Laura, because she keeps saying that she just wants to communicate with them and be able to co-parent. And mind you, there's a lot of kids between all of them, because we know that Jen and Will have 5 kids and Laura has 4 kids. So it's 9 kids total. I said, well, damn. But unfortunately, the communication isn't there, and Jen just wants them to be on the same page and be a big, happy, blended family. But Will and Laura don't want that. Now, I was a bit surprised, only because I remember last season, we saw Will, he was in a few scenes in like the first 2 episodes, and he apologized to Jen for not being a good husband to her, for not loving her properly. So I thought that their communication was fine. I thought it was all good. So now hearing that things are tense between them and there's friction between Laura and Jen, I'm like, wait, what changed? Because the way Jen was selling it to us last season, I thought they were good. So Jen starts getting choked up and says that she just wants them all to let the hurt and the pain go. And then she goes on to add that Will has his own apartment, but a lot of the times the kids will go over to Laura's house and they'll have family dinners. One thing about Tamra, you can always count on her to make you feel even worse about your situation. Because I thought it was a bit messy and uncalled for when she said, oh, by the way, Jen, have you seen Will's Instagram? So Jen's like, no, I haven't. He has me blocked. So Tamra's like, well, I'm not blocked. So she goes on Will's Instagram and she shows Jen his latest IG story where him and the kids and Laura were all together having a good time. So Jen is obviously hurt because when she was married to Will, she never saw that side of him. He was never that fun or that lively with the kids. And it's a hard pill to swallow seeing how he is now versus how he was before. Now, maybe I was reading too much into it, but I felt like Tamra, why show Jen that video? You know she's hurt. You know she feels down about her situation with her ex. And I'm like, showing her that Instagram post, how did you think she was going to feel seeing that? So now Tamra's trying to give us this sincere, tender Dr. Phil moment with Jen. And she goes on to ask Jen, how does Jen feel seeing Will be this loving, doting dad with their children? Does she feel like she's been erased and cut out? Because that's how she felt after she got divorced from Simon and her daughter Sydney chose not to speak to her again. And Tamra, that's why I'm so confused as to how you can be so cruel to the other women knowing that you're dealing with a daughter who does not speak to you, and every time you talk about it, you burst out in tears. I'm just baffled at how you have the gall and the audacity to go so hard on others, knowing that if they ever went that low, you would be on the floor sobbing. But anyhow, Tamra starts getting emotional and she brings up how the last time she saw Sydney was at her other daughter Sophie's graduation. So she says that it was nice talking to Sydney and then she thought that things were going to be fine again. So she tried to reach out to Sydney and nothing. Radio silence, and now she's back at square one. And we even see a clip from the night before where Tamra talked about it, and we see Alexis praying over her, and Tamra's crying. Now, it's no shade, but I would not want Alexis Bellino praying over me. I don't think that Alexis's prayers even hit the ceiling. Because I'm sorry, the same woman who's over here taunting Shannon, I don't want her praying over me about anything. She's bragging about being with John Jansen, so I know that her judgment is not good. So now we see Jen and Tamra hug it out, and I said, Jen, my issue with you is that you are way too trusting. Yes, you and Tamra had a nice time in Big Bear, but please do not for a minute let your guard down and think that Tamra is about to be your friend again. And the mid-season trailer just dropped, and we see that Tamra is on you and Ryan yet again, embarrassing you and smearing your name. So I just said, I really hope that this has been the wake-up call that Tamra does not like you. So now we're back in La Quinta, and we see Gina and Emily out on the tennis court playing pickleball. Now, I've mentioned this several times, but Gina's posture is horrendous. I said, Gina, can you please stand up straight? Please. My neck feels like it's hurting every time I watch Gina because I know that can't be comfortable. And Gina, I pointed this out last time, but your posture can do so much. And I feel like that's another reason why you never look good in your outfits. Well, besides you not having style or taste, but your bad posture adds to that as well. It looks like the clothes are wearing you and not the other way around. So they're playing pickleball, and to be honest, neither one of them are that good at pickleball. So now Gina's like, let's just stop for a second and let's chat. So Gina starts it off and says, I want to talk about last night because I don't want us to have any problems. So she brings up how Emily was angry at her, and Emily owns it. She says, yeah, because I didn't like what I was hearing. So now Gina jumps in and she's like, well, Jen was telling me that you were talking about me too. That if Heather says jump, I say how high. So Emily's like, well, I didn't say that per se, but I did say something similar. And I said one thing about Emily and Gina, they always conveniently forget what they say when they're talking behind your back. They both do that. I feel like that's why they get along so well, because anytime you press them about what they say, all of a sudden it's, well, I didn't say it like that, but I said something similar to that, or I didn't say that at all. And it's like, just be honest. So Emily defends her stance and she says, well, what am I supposed to think when you're all like, oh, I love Katie. Katie's great. She's a good friend. And then all of a sudden you have a conversation with Heather Dubrow and now it's F Katie and she's dead to you. Now, Emily, you know that I don't see it for you whatsoever. I don't like you. I whack you in every single episode along with Miss Gina. But you ate that one little thing. Gina is very two-faced. She's not a good friend. And she changes up like that because she definitely was. I love Katie. She's a great friend to me. We met through Sutton. I like her a lot. Now all of a sudden is, I don't know that girl. Stay away from me, Team Heather. So we cut to Emily's confessional, and of course, she's making another snide remark about Heather. She says, I can only imagine the conversation. Heather was like the Godfather, where she made Gina kiss the ring and fall on the sword. Now, Emily, I'm going to hammer this point home until you get it. I need you to check your insecurities at the door. Something about Heather Dubrow bothers you because throughout your time on this show, you are always referencing how Heather is on another level, how you feel like Heather thinks she's better or superior to you. Every single time you talk about Heather, it's in a way that suggests that you feel like Heather is over you in some way. And again, it's reading as projection because I don't understand why you feel this need to constantly point out how different Heather is from you, how she feels like she's better, when in all reality, how do you know what Heather thinks about herself? You're projecting your insecurities on to her. And you've been doing it ever since Heather came back on the show in season 15? For you to say, oh, Heather thinks that she's the Godfather and makes you kiss the ring. That's what you think about Heather. And Heather asserting boundaries and telling Gina, you effed up as my friend and I can't believe you right now. That's not making anybody kiss the ring. That's holding their friend accountable and saying, if you do this again, we won't be friends. But I'm gonna need that apology before we can move forward. There's nothing wrong with that. So Emily really gets nasty and she says, you allow Heather to manipulate you and you're so far up her ass. Now I said, hold on. How are you saying that Gina's up Heather's ass when you're sitting up there trying to be Tamara's flunky? Let's not, because you want to be Tamara's best friend after Tamara called you Shrek. The call is coming from inside the house. And Gina low-key read you down. She said, wait, I'm up Heather's ass? Because it looks to me that it's the other way around when it comes to you and Tamra. So Gina continues on and she says, look, Emily, I'm not trying to watch you become an even bigger bitch. So now you have Emily saying, I was always aggressive. You knew that when you met me. Now I said, hold on, Emily, because we're not going to sit up here and play these games. You were never that girl. And it's no shade. You were never a Tamra type on this show ever. Insecure, yes, but this aggressive, bitchy woman, no. And also, Emily, you're only aggressive to certain people because with Tamra, you're quiet. But with Jen's not quick on her feet. Jen's not a reader. Jen is very love and light, and she's an easy target. But the people that you know will wear you out and go toe-to-toe with you in an argument, you don't say anything to them. You pick and choose who you want to be aggressive with. If you were really aggressive like you claim, you'd have that same smoke with everybody. But you don't, because you're a bully. Since I can't stand Emily and Gina, watching them go back and forth was annoying. This fight was irritating. Then when Gina asked her, why are you being so aggressive with me? And Emily said, I'm not. I have a weapon in my hand and I haven't even used it yet. And I said, oh my gosh, Emily, stop, please. You're not this tough, girl. You're not. And if you did go upside Gina's head with that racket, Gina would be pressing charges and suing you. And you'd be kicked off this show. So now you have Gina storm off. She throws her racket on the ground. And I said, girl, get out of my face with all this. All these theatrics for what? So as Gina's trying to have this big moment, she can't even get into the house because the doors are locked. So she has to come back to the court and her and Emily hash it out even more. So Gina's all emotional. Emily's like, just calm down, just take a breather. And I said, can y'all settle this now? Because I can assure you guys, we really don't care about this argument between you guys. The vast majority of us don't like either one of y'all. So Emily says that hearing Gina say these things about her hurts her feelings and how it makes her feel like Gina thinks less of her. And Gina's like, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I'm just like, can y'all both just shut up, please? So now Emily brings up how hard things are with Gina and her relationship with Travis. And Gina admits that things are a bit fragile right now, so she just can't even deal with any other outside drama. And respectfully, Gina, when it comes to your relationship with Travis, we don't care. So Gina states that she worries about her and Emily sometimes, and she's not trying to end up like Tamra and Shannon. And Emily reassures her that when it comes to the friendship totem pole, Gina is at the top. Then she says, we're nothing like Shannon and Tamra. They're two dysfunctional nut jobs. And I said, and what are you two? I'll wait. Now, while they're making up and hugging, we see Shannon and Heather come out, and they want to play pickleball too. So they're like, hey, are you guys okay? Like, what's going on? And does anybody notice Emily always has this hint of irritation with Heather? Because did you guys catch the tone when she was like, we're fine. Like, we're fine. And I said, girl, hold on. Take that bass out of your voice. Heather was just asking a question. Heather was only checking on you guys to make sure it was cool because her and Shannon did hear you guys going at it earlier on. So I said, not too much. Let's take it down a notch. But it speaks to Emily's overall irritation and insecurity every time she's around Heather. So now we cut to the ladies in Big Bear, and as they're packing to go back home, we see Alexis call Katie to the side, and she says, hey girl, can I talk to you for a second? I like you and all, but Heather is a dear friend of mine. And I said, wow, isn't it funny how things change? I will never forget how Alexis and Heather could not stand each other. So to hear Alexis and Heather refer to each other as great friends, I'm still shocked. So anyhow, Alexis says that Heather takes things seriously and Katie should apologize to her because she really wants to see Katie and Heather get along. I really think that that ship has sailed with Katie and Heather, especially now when you see Katie in interviews shading Heather. Heather's made it clear that she has no interest in getting to know Katie anymore. The door is closed. Katie, I'm going to need you to take responsibility for all this. You saying that you want to get along with Heather and be friends because you're innocent. How are you innocent? You're sitting up there saying that Heather's lying and how you're going to expose her, and you think that she's going to want to hang out with you? Like, what are you talking about? So now we cut to Jen and Tamra in the next room, and Tamra wants to know if Jen had a good time in Big Bear. So Jen's like, oh my gosh, Tamra, I had the best time. I'm just so happy with where you and I are right now. And I said, now, girl, the way the tides are about to turn later in this season, you're going to see once again that Tamra does not like you, and Tamra is about to embarrass you again and again and again.
And you're going to always get it again and again and again.
So Jen continues on by saying that she loves Tamra and that in the future, she wants them to be honest with each other, be direct, just shoot it straight. And she goes on to say that she sees how Tamra is attacking Shannon. And one thing I hate is when Tamra tries to play dumb. When Tamra said, what do you mean? I'm not attacking her. It's just that I care about her, but I get frustrated. And I said, Tamra, helping somebody is not berating somebody. It's not belittling somebody. It's not throwing their mistakes back up in their face every chance you get. That's not help. That's just being mean and kicking somebody when they're down. That's what you're doing. Now, usually I don't care for a housewife who's trying to play peacemaker, but when it comes to Jen, I feel that she has a very gentle spirit and a very kind heart. So I really don't mind it coming from her because it really seems like she wants all the women to be friends. She's really not here for the drama or the BS. But she says, Tamra, I want you to have a sit-down conversation with Shannon lovingly. Because what you're doing right now, sis, that's not it. So now we see them all about to leave Big Bear. And as they're loading up the car, we see Alexis on the phone with John. So she's like, hey babe, what's up? I should be back in the OC in the next 2 hours. But all of a sudden we hear Alexis giving us all these theatrics. She's like, wait, what? I'm about to lose it right now. The gloves are coming off. Are you effing kidding me? And I already knew, without her even saying anything, that this was about Shannon. Because John and Alexis are both obsessed with Shannon Storm's boudoir. She is running laps in Alexis and John's pea brains. And I'm just confused as to how they claim they can't stand her. John wants nothing to do with Shannon, but he's always bringing her up. So now we clearly hear Alexis say Shannon's name, and she's like, what Shannon is doing right now, oh my gosh, I'm about to lose it. Then she goes on to add how she can hear it in Johnny's voice that he's had enough. I said, had enough of what? So now we cut to Alexis in her confessional, and a producer's asking her, what exactly does she mean by saying the gloves are coming off? So Alexis says, well, I can't really say anything about that. You'd have to ask John because he can tell you everything. And Alexis, the way you've been carrying on, either say what really happened or, in the words of Monique, leave it on the playground. This feels so juvenile for you to be talking in circles, and then when you're asked a direct question, now it's, well, you have to ask Johnny? Well, you've been John's mouthpiece all this time, so you might as well say exactly what you're talking about. Don't chicken out now, sis. So now Alexis is acting very erratic, and she says that we have the footage, and now we see Alexis laying down fake crying, saying that Shannon is a piece and that she's about to throw up. I said, girl, what? I just, whoever said, let's bring Alexis Bellino back, this show was perfectly fine without Alexis. You know who I would actually want to see back? Gretchen. She's somebody I want to see. But Alexis, no. I didn't like her then, I don't like her now. So both girls' trips are over, and we see that everybody's back in Orange County, and now we jump to Emily and Katie meeting up with their sons. So they're all having a good time, and now Katie and Emily are comparing girls' trips. So Katie says that she had a great time in Big Bear, and then she goes on to ask Emily how was their time in La Quinta. So Emily says, oh yeah, we had a good time too, lots of laughs, but we did have a few dramatic moments. Gina and Heather got into it because they had some unresolved issues. Gina apologized several times, but she did get annoyed because she feels like either Heather's going to accept my apology or not. So now Katie points out that it seems like Gina is a girl's girl when it comes to Heather and nobody else. Now, Katie, while Gina is a snake, you also have to take ownership for what you did. You should have never brought this up in the first place. And like I keep reiterating, why would you bring up this paparazzi stuff when you weren't even on the show when this happened? You brought up a stale storyline that didn't even involve you in the least bit. So take the L on the chin and do better. But don't sit up here and act like Gina is the only one at fault. Yes, Gina did set you up for failure. Yes, she did play you, but you also played yourself. So now Katie brings up all the drama between Shannon and Alexis. Katie brings up that when they were in Big Bear, Alexis brought up how her and John have footage of Shannon and how she could expose it if Shannon doesn't stop. It's the footage from his Ring camera of Shannon almost running over his daughter. So let's just pause right here. I think it's very strategic that John waited for the cameras to start rolling again, for him to be threatening to release all this footage. Why didn't you do it right after she got the DUI? The fact that you waited, 5 or 6 months later, when the cameras went back up for the new season, now you're calling and talking about, oh, you have these videos and all this footage. If you were that upset, if you were that concerned, why didn't you release this earlier on? I think this is a scorned man who sees that the gravy train is over and he wants to embarrass Shannon, humiliate her, and find a way to still be in Shannon's pockets. That's what this feels like. And I'm also pissed because this is the second time that I had to agree with Emily, because even Emily said if John and Alexis are happy together, why do they feel the need to keep dragging Shannon? Just go off into the sunset and be happy. All this extra stuff is weird. And she's telling the truth, because happy people don't do this. If you guys are so in love and that's the man and the woman of your dreams, you're not sitting up here worried about an ex. They are fixated on Shannon. It's disturbing. It's borderline psychotic. And if John is sitting on all this footage, if he does decide to release it, I hope Shannon sues him for every dollar. And she better sue Alexis as well. And we do cut to a parallel scene with Gina and Tamra. Tamra's over at Gina's house, and they're talking about their trips. So, of course, Shannon Bedore is the topic of conversation yet again. Somebody please order Shannon a back brace, because Shannon is carrying this franchise on her back. In every scene, they're always talking about Shannon. So Gina points out that when Shannon is in the room, Alexis is super focused on her. And Gina wants to know if Alexis still had those same vibes since Shannon wasn't at Big Bear. So now Gina continues on by saying that she's aware that Shannon is a sensitive topic because we know that Tamra and Shannon aren't speaking right now. And she goes on to say that Shannon did let her guard down in La Quinta. She had a great time with them and she let her hair down. She was vulnerable because she felt like they were a safe space. So now you have Tamra asking, did she drink? And I said, hold on. Shannon is a grown-ass woman. You're not her mother. And even still, she's a grown-ass woman. And who are you to be policing her, asking other people, did she drink? That's none of your business. And I was annoyed that Gina answered that. If I were Gina, I would have said, well, go ask Shannon, because that's not my place to tell her business. But Gina's so dumb. She tells everything. So she's like, yeah, she did have a few drinks. And I just said again, Gina, I wouldn't have told Tamra anything. That's not Tamra's business. And y'all are not Shannon's keeper. Nobody should be reporting back about what Shannon does or doesn't do. So Tamra goes on this whole thing about how it's because Shannon likes to drink. And I said, girl, you do too. Anybody who drinks likes to drink. Like, let's keep it a buck for a minute, right? If you consume alcohol, I don't care if it's on a regular basis, somewhat regular basis, you obviously enjoy it, because if you didn't, you would just not drink. So for you to act like Shannon just loves drinking, that's hypocritical, because you like drinking too. Also, Tamra, you've been on this show for 15 years. We've seen you drunk and nobody has judged you about it. And when Tamra went on to say, because you and I, we drink, but we don't have drinking problems. And I really did respect Gina when she said, well, no, I had a problem. That's why I had to stop. And she even brought up how she had her DUI a few years ago. It's not just Shannon. So now Tamra says, well, there are people who have drinking problems, and then there are people who are assholes. And I said, oh, really? We want to talk about assholes? Are you sure, Tamra? One of the biggest ones on this franchise? Really? So Tamra goes on to say that she wants to have a conversation with Shannon soon, and how Shannon needs tough love. Now, once again, Tamra, what you're giving is not tough love at all. There's no love in what you're trying to do with Shannon. You are really trying to beat Shannon down. You want to beat the self-esteem out of her. You want her to relive her mistake. You want this woman to be a shell of herself. That's what you want. And again, that's not love. Because if you love somebody, you remind them that just because they made a mistake doesn't mean that they are a mistake or that they have to sit there forever. You're very lucky that Shannon has not gone off on you, because I know that a lot of people would have really read you for filth. Now, this next scene with Jen and Ryan going out for pedicures, I don't have a whole lot to say, but I did think it was a bit alarming when Jen is telling Ryan how the girls set up an OnlyFans page for her to sell feet pictures. And Ryan was like, oh no, I'm putting my foot down, no way. And then he made a joke about how he has an OnlyFans account with his feet too, or something like that. And Jen says, I'm going to check to see if he does have an OnlyFans account. And she says, everybody keeps asking how he makes his money, right? And then she goes on to ask, how does he make his money? And I said, Jen, you're my girl. I've been rooting for you this entire time. But Miss Mamas, I do need you to wake up. This is very scary that you're with a man and you have no idea what he does for a living. That should be a huge red flag. But you really need to look out for yourself and your 5 children and not be so swept off of your feet that you're with a scammer. Again, I like you and all, sis, but it's giving stupid. Just because he's flashing some cash, he has a nice house, which is giving rental. But again, I'm just saying, you need to really do your due diligence, do a background check. Hire a PI if you can, because the math ain't mathin'. And we know that because the news broke a few months ago that he's allegedly involved in this $16 million Ponzi scheme with this professional baseball player. And when you also try to see what does he do, it says that he owns some business, but you don't even know what the business does. A hot ass mess. It's time to grow up. I'm serious, and it's no shade. I like you a lot, but that's unacceptable that you don't know what he does for a living. What's with a lot of these single housewives attracting scammers? It just seems like across the board, a lot of these women keep picking losers who can't seem to make money the legal way. So now we jump to the last scene of this episode, and the way my blood was just boiling because Tamra is so hateful and Shannon is a better woman than me, because I would have left that dinner table and I would have never spoken to Tamra Judge ever again. But anyhow, it's the day of Shannon and Tamra's meetup, and they're both on their way to the restaurant. So we see Tamra on the phone with Jen, and Shannon is on the phone with Heather. Was anybody else confused when Tamra said that she's a bit agitated because she feels like Shannon should have reached out to her first? I said, girl, on what planet? Tamra, are you well? Why on earth would Shannon reach out to you first after you've been going hard on her every time you see her? You have cursed her out. You've called her a liar. You've literally embarrassed her every time you guys have been around each other. So please let me know, why do you feel like Shannon should have reached out to you first? So we see Tamra at the restaurant first, and now we see Shannon arrive. So Tamra started off all wrong in my opinion. She says, I just want to say, I know how difficult this was for you, but I was hoping that by now you would have reached out to me first. The way Shannon is me. Shannon says, excuse me? The way you treated me at Gina's dinner, the way you yelled at me, why would I reach out to you first? Are you stupid? So Shannon goes on to say how Tamra has been defaming her. And of course, Tamra can't be mature, so she's making faces and trying to imitate Shannon. And I just said, Tamra, you just look so dumb right now. At your big age, making faces trying to mimic Shannon. Shannon has the patience of a saint, because I would have left right then and there. I'm not doing this. Thank you for your services. I'm good. We don't ever have to speak again. So Shannon continues on and says that Tamra has been defaming her for the past 8 weeks, calling her a drunk, saying that she's not sober, and how Tamra knows nothing about her. So Tamra says, I know everything about you. I've known you for the past 10 years. I said, again, girl, who Shannon was then is not the same. People grow, people evolve. And also, you're not God. So to say, I know everything about you, no, you don't. So Shannon says that she's focusing on being healthy, and Tamra just can't help herself. She says, oh, so you don't drink? So Shannon says, well, I do drink. I'll have 2 drinks max. And I said, Shannon, once again, you're a grown-ass woman. You don't owe Tamra or anybody else an explanation. So now you have Tamra taking it even further, and she's like, oh, so you don't have a drinking problem? So Shannon's a bit flustered, and she says, do I recognize that before I was using alcohol to cope through darker periods in my life? Yes. And before she can finish, Tamra says, oh, so sneaking alcohol is okay? So Shannon's like, well, that was one time. And I said, again, Shannon, you don't need to sit here and put up with this. Tamra has no right to question you about anything. Tamra's not signing your checks. She's not paying any of your bills. Tamra does not have a heaven or a hell to put you or anybody else in. So again, Shannon, you don't owe her an explanation. She's just doing this to rattle you. That's all it is. She's trying to purposely trigger you and get you upset. So here's where the conversation goes left. Shannon brings up how Tamra has also been in compromising situations, and now Tamra says, but have I ever drove my car into a house? So at this point, Shannon's like, you know what? Let me get up right now. I'm not going to do this. And we see her walk to the bathroom. She goes on to ask production for her purse. So you have Tamra sitting there saying, oh, is she leaving? So production's like, well, we don't know yet. Now, the way Tamra was sitting there so smug, I was really sick to my stomach. I said, you really see how much Tamra enjoys just being hateful. Because why would you say that? Shannon is well aware of what she did. And the fact that you want to keep reminding her every chance you get, what does that say about you? And I felt so bad when we saw Shannon in the bathroom crying. She's talking to production. She's like, Tamra has spread lies about me. She's defamed my character. Like, I'm not here for this. And now we see Tamra still at the table. She's talking to production. And she's like, oh, where is she? So they're like, oh, she's in the bathroom. And you have Tamra talking about, oh, is she getting a drink? I said, who drinks in the bathroom? What are you talking about? You really think that it's a game? And Tamra, you're so blessed that Shannon does not go below the belt, because I can assure you, if it were anybody else, they would be reading you for filth about what's going on between you and your daughter. I would be on Tamra so hard. I would make her regret ever coming for me, because absolutely not. And even Shannon said in her confessional that Tamra's lucky that she's not stooping to her level. I think it's shameful that there's been no personal growth or personal development with Tamra. She is still the same person. So Shannon's back and she apologizes for walking away. And I said, Shannon, you have nothing to be sorry about. I'm happy that you took a breather, because other people would have flipped that table over and they probably would have thrown a drink at Tamra. So what you did was very admirable. Don't feel sorry for anything. So Shannon says that she's received a lot of support from the other women, and it feels really good because she's never had this before. So now you have Tamra so fake offended. She's like, wait, what? I was your friend for 10 years. I always supported you. And now you want to say that I never supported you? Like, really? That hurts. So only Tamra is allowed to be hurt, but nobody else. Got it. So Shannon brings up Gina's dinner and she says, do you realize how off the rails you were that night? You were screaming at me and then backing Alexis Bellino. And of course, Tamra's so smug and she's like, oh, you mean about the money that you owe John? So Shannon clears that up and she says, I don't owe him a dime. I paid for everything for the first 2 years of that relationship. And then she goes on to add that she was stupid to stay. And now Tamra wants to know if he's suing her. So Shannon is emotional and she says, yes, he's suing me. My attorney sent him an offer letter earlier today. He rejected it. He won't accept a penny under $75,000. And if Shannon doesn't come up with a payment plan, then they're going to file on Friday. So she goes on to say that she's not paying him a dime and that she's not going to go through another 3 years of hell. So at this point, Shannon is a wreck. She's sobbing. And Tamra's like, I don't blame you. I'm so sorry. And I said, really, Tamra? I honestly feel like it's too little too late when it comes to Tamra trying to be a good friend again and make amends. Too much damage has been done. Too much has been said. You're siding with the op. Alexis Bellino is now your new BFF, and now you want to offer me some sympathy and encouragement. Like, get out of my face with that. So you have Tamra saying, I don't blame you, Shannon. This whole thing is a mess. Then she says in 2018, when Jim Bellino sued both her and Shannon trauma bonded because they felt like, are we going to be broke after this? They didn't know what was going to happen. So she feels sad that Shannon has to deal with this again. So now you have Tamra going on about how her heart is breaking for Shannon. And I said again, where was this months ago? Now all of a sudden your heart breaks for her and you feel sorry. Like, what? So now Tamra says, look, Shannon, I'm having a party on Wednesday and I would love to have you and Vicky attend. So Shannon, here's where I have to whack you. And I'm whacking you out of love because I don't want to see you hurt. But the way you jumped up to accept that invitation and give Tamra a hug, I said, girl, are you serious? But this is why I said I don't get too invested when it comes to Shannon, Vicky, and Tamra falling out, because they do this every single time. They fall out to make back up again and be best friends and be sisters, to do it again a year later. It's a very dysfunctional roller coaster. They do this all the time. And I don't know what spell Tamra has on these women, but I want it to stop. Because Tamra treats people so poorly and they still come back for more. So now we see Tamra saying that she loves Shannon too and she only wants the best for her. I said, okay. And the way I rolled my eyes, I said, they are both playing in our faces. So Tamra actually apologizes for how she acted at Gina's dinner. And then Shannon apologizes for I don't know what. I said, why are you apologizing? You haven't done anything to Tamra. Tamra has been on you all season long. So again, Shannon, why are you apologizing? But guys, that was the episode. That was my recap. As y'all can see, I had so much to say. OC is really that girl, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. If you're not into OC, please start watching. They're always giving what the other girls were supposed to have gave, in the words of the iconic Rolling Ray. But y'all, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening on my podcast. And you already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all later. Bye.